Hello Year 6, welcome to today's reading lesson. Now today we are reading another chapter of the book and then we're looking at comparing events in the story to real life. So the best way to do this is let's just get in the book. Here we go. Yeah, so like I said, we are looking and making comparisons between something in a story and something that happens in like everyday life and real life. Now these questions are questions that I want you to have a go at answering as we're going through. Some of them you might want to write down in your book, some of them you don't need to. So things like, hang on, what does the verb zoom tell you about how Oggy's feeling as he moves in the next class? I'd like you to write that down. What is a precept? You don't need to write it down, just have a little think about it. What do you think really important things are? You can write that down. And what's your impression so far of Mr. Brown? Would you like to have him as a teacher? Why? Okay, so let's get into the text and those questions will be up as we're reading through. Choose kind. You remember that just before we finish this, just before this chapter, we had the thing where Oggy was in his homeroom and Julian's just in this thing about Darth Sidious. Okay, choose kind. There was a lot of shuffling around when the bell rang and everybody got up to leave. I checked my schedule and it said my class was English. My next class was English, room 321. I didn't stop to see if anyone else from my homeroom was going my way. I just zoomed out of the class and down the hall and sat down as far away from the front as possible. So you can answer that first question. The teacher, a really tall man with a yellow beard, was writing on the chalkboard. Kids came in laughing and talking in little groups, but I didn't look up. Basically, the same thing that had happened in homeroom happened again. I'm gonna have lost my place. No one sat next to me, except for Jack, who was joking around with some kids who weren't in our homeroom. I could tell Jack was the kind of kid other kids liked. He had a lot of friends. He made people laugh. When the second bell rang, everyone got quiet and the teacher turned round and faced us. His name was Mr. Brown, and then he started talking about what we would be doing this semester, which is like a term. At a certain point, somewhere between A Wrinkle in Time and Shen of the Sea, he noticed me but kept on right on talking. I was mostly doodling in my notebook while he talked, but every once in a while I would sneak a look at the other students. Charlotte was in this class, so were Julian and Henry. Miles wasn't. Mr. Brown had written on the chalkboard in big block letters, P-R-E-C-E-P-T, precept. Okay, everybody write this down at the very top of your very first page in your English notebook. As we did what he told us to, he said, okay, so can anyone tell me what a precept is? Does anyone know? No one raised their hands. Mr. Brown smiled, nodded, and turned around to write on the chalkboard again. Precepts equals rules about really important things. Like a motto, someone called out. Like a motto, said Mr. Brown, nodding as he continued writing on the board. Like a famous quote, like a line from a fortune cookie. Any saying or ground rule that can motivate you. Basically, a precept is anything that helps guide us when making decisions about really important things. He wrote all that out on the chalkboard and then turned and faced us. So, what are some really important things? He asked. Now's a good time for you to write them in your book. A few kids raised their hands and as he pointed at them, they gave their answers, which he wrote on the chalkboard in really, really sloppy handwriting. Rules, schoolwork, homework. What else? He said as he wrote, not even turning around. Just call things out. He wrote everything everyone called out. Family, parents, pets. One girl called out the environment. The environment, he wrote on the chalkboard and added, our world. Sharks, because they eat dead things in the ocean, said one of the boys, a kid named Reed, and Mr. Brown wrote down, sharks. Bees, seatbelts, recycling, friends. Okay, said Mr. Brown, writing all these things down. He turned around when he'd finished writing to faces again. But no one's named the most important thing of all. We all looked at him out of ideas. God? Said one kid, and I could tell that even though Mr. Brown wrote God down, that wasn't the answer he was looking for. Without saying anything else, he wrote down, who we are. Who we are, he said, underlining each word as he said it. Who we are. Us, right? What kind of people are we? What kind of person are you? Isn't that the most important thing of all? Isn't that the kind of question we should be asking ourselves all the time? What kind of person am I? Did anyone happen to notice the plaque next to the door of this school? Anyone read what it says? Anyone? He looked around, but no one knew the answer. It says, "Know thyself," he said, smiling and nodding, "and learning who you is and what you're here to do." "I thought we were here to learn English," Jack cracked, which made everyone laugh. "Oh yeah, and that too," Mr. Brown answered, which I thought was very cool of him. He turned around and wrote in big, huge black block letters that spread all the way across the chalkboard. Mr. Brown's September precept: when given the choice between being right or being kind, choose kind. "Okay, so everybody," he said, facing us again, "I want you to start a brand new section in your notebooks and call it Mr. Brown's Precepts." He kept talking as we did what he'd asked us, telling us to do. "Put today's date at the top of the first page, and from now on, at the beginning of every month, I'm going to write a new Mr. Brown's precept on the chalkboard, and you're going to write it down in your notebook. Then we're going to discuss that precept and what it means. And at the end of the month, you're going to write an essay about it and what it means to you. So by the end of this year, you'll all have your own list of precepts to take away with you." Over the summer, I asked the students to come up with their very own personal precept, write it on a postcard, and mail it to me from wherever you go on your summer vacation. "People really do that?" said one girl whose name I didn't know. "Oh yeah," he answered. "People really do that. I've had students send me new precepts years after they've graduated from this school, actually. It's pretty amazing." He paused and stroked his beard. "But anyway, next summer seems like a long way off, I know," he joked, which made us laugh. "So everybody relax a bit while I take attendance, and then when we're finished with that, I'll start telling you about all the fun stuff we're going to be doing this year in English." He pointed to Jack when he said this, which was also funny, so we all laughed at that. As I wrote down Mr. Brown's September precept, I suddenly realised that I was going to like school, no matter what. And that is the end of the chapter. So those 4 questions, hopefully you've been able to answer. Okay, what does the verb zoomed tell us about how Oggy was feeling? What is a precept? What do you think are the really important things are? And this is a question for now. What is your impression of Mr. Brown so far? Would you like to have him as a teacher? Why? Now, I know it's hard for you to compare to other teachers because you've got me, who is obviously amazing, the best teacher in the world ever, possibly in the universe. But would you like to have Mr. Brown? And then your task for at the end of this video is to write, not a long one. So what would your precept be? If you could choose a rule that everyone did and everyone tried their best to do, what would it be? And what reasons would you give for it? Okay, so try and think of something, not just like everyone play football all the time, or everyone now needs to listen to songs. Try and think of something that you can, almost a bit like that. So that one where, what was it? If, hang on, let me make sure I say it right. I don't want to do Mr. Brown in service. When given the choice between being right or being kind, choose kind. I'd slightly change that if it was me, and I'd say, when given the choice between the easy option or the kind option, choose the kind option. Anyway, I think he's been listening to my rules as Mr. Brown. Quick reminder, number 1, be kind. Number 2, listen when someone's talking. Number 3, be kind. I have easy school rules. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking now, so your task, come up with your own little precept and explain why you've chosen that precept. And then I look forward to seeing your work. Goodbye, Year 6.